Want to hear from who else is out there today. Welcome. I'm Nakia Drummond. I am your host for this session this morning. My team, NLD Strategic, we are in partnership with Baltimore City Schools on the speaker series for the last couple years, where this is some of our favorite work to do. We're really excited to be here with you and really excited for this discussion about who has power in this moment. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? We're going to hear from some amazing panelists, and we're going to enjoy this conversation moderated by an awesome student in Baltimore City. And before we get started into the panel, we are just going to hear a welcome message from one of our amazing former City Schools teammates who would sit in this seat I'm in when he was here, and he did it so incredibly well. We're going to hear from Rashad Staten on as a welcome to this session today.
Hello.
Peace and blessings, everyone. Welcome to the second virtual BMore Me Speaker Series and panel event. I am Rashad Staten, and I must say I proudly have served as the former youth engagement specialist for Baltimore City Public Schools and currently serve as the executive director of Community Law in Action. I'm excited today to provide the introductory to the BMore Me Speaker Series in the theme on who has the power in this moment. And I must attest that you all have the power in this moment as students, as school staff, leaders, partners, and all of our stakeholders across our school communities. Again, I'm excited as you all will be engaged and be informed of other thought leaders who operate in many different facets and different hats and representation across Baltimore City that will share their light and their lived experience on how they have enacted change in Baltimore and beyond. With this opportunity, I want you all as young people and students to understand that you all possess the power of positive change and possess the power in this moment to use your voice, your actions, your organizing skills, and your lens and perspective to provide transformative change and powerful change within your peer group, within your families, amongst your friends, in your school communities, and across your neighborhoods in the larger Baltimore. I'm excited for what is to come and how you all can be solution-oriented in the challenges and the lived experiences that you all deal with on a daily. You all may have already seen how certain personnels, despite their titles, representation, and whom they work for and work with, have also possessed power in the moments in which they've been called to serve. You all may be aware of how Baltimore's Mayor Brandon Scott, uses his political power and influence to push legislation and policy to represent all of our Baltimoreans, along with his colleagues or city councilmatic representatives, in passing legislation and policy that we all can live a fruitful life in Baltimore. You have already may have been well aware of how our celebrities and influencers use their platforms and their ideals and their artistic talents to persuade others by using their power and influence and how they gauge around activating fans and others to believe in the ideas and the talents that they possess. But more importantly, through today's panel discussion, I want you all as young people to delve deep into how you can hone into your voice and use the power into moments for you to enact change amongst yourself and externally amongst your school community with your peers, teachers, administrators, parents, and guardians. You all have opportunities that is awarded to you right now in the current moment to be leaders in the present, regardless of a title. You all may be aware that you have your school family councils that have space for youth representation, for you all to serve on your community advisory boards where youth representation are a part of. You all have opportunities to be a part of your school government associations and or student-led organizations. You all have rights to exercise your voice and possess the power in the moment. And I hope that today's BMore Me Speaker Series, that is a focus in who has the power in the moment, ignites the passion in you all to be valuable, visible, and intentional leaders to make positive impact for yourselves and the world around you. Enjoy and welcome again to BMore Me Speaker Series, Who Has the Power in the Moment.
Awesome. Thanks so much to Rashad. I don't know if you're on the line today, but thank you. Thank you for that awesome message and for the work that you have done in city schools and the work that you continue to do to move us forward. All right, now comes the fun stuff. I have the pleasure of introducing our student moderator and our panelists this morning, and then I'm handing it over to the student moderator to get this conversation going. So our moderator is Malaya Victor. She's a 12-year-old 8th grade student at Mount Royal Elementary Middle School. She proudly skipped a grade, so yes, 12 in the 8th grade, and is in the Ingenuity Project. She's attending Baltimore Polytechnic Institute in the fall as a freshman. Welcome, Malaya. And I would like to introduce next Councilwoman Odette Ramos. She's the first Hispanic person to be elected into office in Baltimore City. She represents District 14 in the Baltimore City Council. Thank you so much for being here, Councilwoman Ramos. Welcome. Next up, I'm introducing a student panelist, Gemma Chester. She is a 17-year-old junior at Baltimore Polytechnic Institute. Okay, Poly showing up today, huh? An entrepreneur, a self-taught artist, a youth leader, and an advocate from West Baltimore. All the West Baltimore people in the house shouted out in the chat. She has presented and trained many people and organizations on trauma and healing and has a passion for helping others. Looking forward to hearing from you, Gemma. And next up, and I'm not sure if he has joined us yet, but I will introduce him in case he does hop on. Jamie Wooten. He's a trusted advisor and a consultant to many of the world's most influential faith-based and nonprofit organizations. His work has spanned the globe, advising nonprofits, faith-based organizations, and corporations, as well as individuals in their efforts to engage their constituencies. He will be able to share more about that. And last but certainly not least, my good friend, Nikedra is her name, but we call her Nike, like the goddess, not the shoe, you'll hear her say. Robinson, she is a Baltimore, Maryland native. Nike is an entrepreneur, a visionary, and motivator and connector with a passion for changing the world. She launched Black Girls Vote, Inc., and that encourages, mobilizes, and activates Black women to use their collective voting power. And she is a force. So welcome to all of our panelists. Turning it over to you now, Malaya, to kick off this conversation.
All right, hi, I'm Malaya, and here's a little Q&A for our panelists. So what is your 60-second answer to who are you and how do you stand in your power every day?
Do you want us to go in order? We can go in order, I guess. Good morning, everybody. It's so exciting to be here with you. I'm Odette Ramos. I'm representing the 14th District in Baltimore City Council. And I'm, as was said earlier, the first Hispanic person elected in Baltimore City. Prior to being a council person, I was working on issues around community development and addressing vacant properties and affordable housing. I have continued that work as a council person and will continue to do that as well. So, and I'm literally standing in my office. We're welcoming everybody back to City Hall on Monday. It's very exciting. So what I do every day is work hard for my constituents. And that is what I'm here to do and what they elected me to do. And I'm really honored to have the opportunity to do so.
I can go next. So hey everybody, my name is Gemma Chester. I'm a youth leader and advocate here in Baltimore City. I'm also an entrepreneur and artist. How do I stand in my power every day? I would say by just showing my discipline through my work, being authentic with the people and organizations that I work with, making sure that I practice self-care because I have to take care of myself in order to help others, and just really making sure I'm spreading the right information and getting into the right.
Ms.
All right.
Mackey?
Thank you, Malaya, for the amazing introduction. Who are you? I am wise. I am brilliant. I'm amazing. I am Black. I'm a woman. I am grateful. I am kept. I am protected. I am safe. I am joy. I am grateful. I am wise. I am excited to be here with you all today. And so when you ask, who are you? It's so important that you affirm yourself every single day. And so when I show up in places, I show up first as a woman, as a Black woman, but I also show up as myself and standing in that power every single day. A lot of times it's just showing up. How do I stand in my power? It really is showing up. And so many times when I don't feel like showing up, when I'm tired, when I'm exhausted, that's how I show up in my power. And that's how I stand in my power. But besides all of that, right? I'm the founder and CEO of Black Girls Vote. In 2015, my life shifted, things happened for me, and I'll get into that a little bit later, but I launched the most amazing organization that I could think of, and that's called Black Girls Vote. And I didn't launch it because everything was perfect in my life. I launched it because there were some circumstances that happened around my life. So we'll get into that a little later, but I'm also a founder and CEO of Black Girls Vote, and we are committed to engaging, educating, and empowering women, particularly young Black women, to get involved in the political process. So hopefully you all are registered to vote. If you're not registered to vote, we'll talk about that a little later, how you can get registered. But let's just talk about your power, because you all are powerful. So thank you for having me today, and I'm excited to be here.
No, that's a great example of a leader. BMore Me offers students space to explore concepts like advocacy and power through their and others' personal journeys. How has Baltimore shaped your ideas of power? What specific experiences have most impacted your life?
You want us to go in any order, Malaya?
Mrs. Ramos can go
Okay.
first.
Thank you. I've been in Baltimore for 30 years. I wasn't born and raised here, but my husband was. And but I came to Baltimore to go to Goucher College. And then I went to New Jersey for graduate school and came back. And honestly, I came back and decided to stay in Baltimore because Baltimore sent me a message. Baltimore said, I need you. Baltimore said, you have a role to play. And so that is what really shapes my ideas of power. Power isn't about me. Power isn't about us. Power is about all of us and our responsibility to do what we can for our city. And each of us has a role to play. And we use our presence, our talents, our experiences to play that role and make sure that Baltimore becomes a place that we want it to be. So that's how I was sort of shaped in really bringing the ideas that I have and the opportunities and experiences to Baltimore, and then having the experiences in Baltimore over the last 30 years working in communities has been able to shape what I'm doing today and why I'm doing it today and why I decided to run for office when the opportunity arose, because I thought, you know what, this is how I can make more of a difference for my communities in Baltimore. And there's a lot of specific instances. I mean, one of the big ones was, this was a long time ago, before some of you were born, but in 1998, we had what was really a brilliant and awesome thing that I hope we can bring back to Baltimore. And it was called the Neighborhood Congress. It was the first year that we didn't have, that Mayor Schmoke had decided he wasn't running. So we had an open seat for mayor, and community groups and organizers across the city came together and said, we need a neighborhoods agenda. And so we came up with that agenda by having solutions forums across the city. You could not complain. You had to come with a solution. And we brought the agenda together, all gathered at City College, and it was 1,000, seat auditorium with 2,000 people in it. And it was amazing. People came up, and voted with little stickers, and we came up with that agenda. And it was super powerful. And I want to bring something like that back so that residents can continue to have a voice in how we're shaping our city.
I can go next. I think Baltimore has shaped my ideas of power a lot, especially with me being born here and growing up here, going to Baltimore City Public Schools for all my life. And y'all know how middle school is because y'all was in middle school, but I guess middle school may have been a little bit different when I was, which wasn't that long ago. But definitely throughout middle school and growing up, I seen like if somebody had power, it was usually through like an aggressive lens. So that person was feared. They were usually aggressive to others. And I kind of replicated that same thing when I was in school because of like things that I was experiencing at home, whatever going on in my neighborhood. So I was reflecting those same things that I was seeing in order to demonstrate like this thing of power. But as I got older, I realized that that wasn't necessarily the case. And when the pandemic happened and I got involved with Heart Smiles, I realized that a lot of the things that associate with power has nothing to do with people fearing you. So that was a big thing for me. So after I got that mentorship and support from Heart Smiles and the Healing Youth Alliance, I realized that being powerful could be so many different things that are positive. So I realized that me doing art is my powerful, me helping others is a being powerful. So I definitely think that after seeing like all the good things in Baltimore, all the talent, all the youth that were doing so many good things, and I'm like, these people at my age doing all this stuff, they talking to all these big people who, you know, I seen as like higher up. So definitely just seeing that positive influence within the community after just seeing so much negative influence changed my view on who had power, who had influence, and like what you could really do with your life and what you could determine is powerful. So I would definitely say my experiences growing up, my environment that I was in, and the different support systems that I've had throughout growing up definitely impacted how I view people and the power that they hold.
And that's really important because nowadays in school, it could still be like that in some situations. And I feel like that could be a very important message to share with kids nowadays.
Okay, I'll go next. How has Baltimore shaped my ideas of power? Baltimore is a city of opportunities. Everyone says Baltimore, right? And it's, people say 6 degrees of separation, 3 degrees of separation in Baltimore. There's only 1 degree of separation, I believe. And just being able to connect with people when I mentioned I launched Black Girls Vote in 2015, and launching Black Girls Vote is because 3 things really happened to me in my life. The first thing in 2015 that happened, you all may or may not remember, not sure where you were in your life, but when Freddie Gray was killed, right? The riots that happened. The next day, I wasn't out there the day of, but the next day we were out in the community, like, what can we do to clean up the community? How can we support? I remember being at the playground, right? And all the media was there from all over the world. And then we were like, okay, what can we do, right? Was marching in the streets. Not the next day, later on in 2015 in Baltimore that happened, I was working a good government job and I got let go from my job. So that's the second thing that happened. Some would say when you work in government, you lose, it's a political appointee. So I got let go from my job. So I went to work one day, had a job. The next day I didn't. And the last thing that happened to me that forced me to start Black Girls Vote, the straw that broke the camel's back, was there was a murder that happened directly across the street from me in Northwest Baltimore. And for me, that was very scary because as a single woman, I go in the house late at night, not necessarily always watching over my back. And then when the murder happened, when the police came knocking on my door, asked if I had seen anything, I was like, wow, that was very scary for me. So Freddie Gray getting killed, me losing my job, and then the murder are all tied to policy one way, shape, or another, right? Everything we do is political. So I said, at this moment, we have an election coming up next year, and that's 2016. So I said, what if we organize people in Baltimore, particularly, to start an organization to get more people out to vote, because that means that they're engaged on the issues, we're talking about the issues, and start talking to our policymakers and our lawmakers about how do we improve our quality of life. And so in November of that year, we launched at Western High School, which you all, I'm sure, are familiar with. And so those experiences really have impacted my life the most, because starting a business, not having any, business plan, not having any money, any of that. I was just having the faith and then the connections, as I mentioned to you all about in Baltimore, people who have supported me along the way. And it's been the most scariest thing I've ever done. However, it's been the most impactful and the thing I'm most proud of. And so that all happened in Baltimore. And I don't know if I would have done it in another city, but being able to be in Baltimore, get the support in Baltimore, and just having the grassroots feeling in Baltimore has truly changed and impacted my life.
Yeah, and some people feel like politics is only for adults and only adults can vote, but it really impacts everybody because in school you learn about politics, out of school you hear people talking about politics, and it affects everybody because you live where they protect and where they make the decisions. So if you actually put in your opinion, it might be a better outcome for you to feel better about where you live.
Absolutely. And getting your friends who have the same opinion. That's organizing, as Rashad just said. So if you all say that, we want a bus stop located here, I don't know, and getting all your friends to come around, that's organizing. You go to Councilwoman Ramos and say, hey, this is an issue that we have as students. She has no choice to listen, right? But if it's one person going, that's great. But if you get 100 people, oh, wow, 1,000, then that's when that's how you advocate on your behalf. So don't look at policy or politics as a bad thing. It's people who are passionate about their community and what's happening in their lives, and you're just getting people around you who agree. It's really simple. Thank you, Malia. Great example.
You're welcome. Okay, Councilwoman Ramos, there's a power and praise that comes with being the first to do something, but it is also a very heavy load sometimes. What are some of the great and not so great parts of being a first? And what advice do you have for students who may be first at something now or someday in the future?
Such a great question. So two things. One is it is a great honor to be the first, but it's more important to make sure that you're not the last, right? Because I want to make sure that girls and women of Hispanic descent, Latino, whatever country they come from, that they also have the opportunity to be here, to be leaders, to stand out in their communities. And not just Hispanic women, anybody, because we still need more women to run for office and to be leaders and to show that it is possible with a lot of hard work, a lot of great connections and networks and organizing, as Nikidra said. And so it is amazing to be here, but I want to make sure that I'm not the last. The other piece is that I think sometimes in spaces where they're not used to somebody who's new or a group who's new, like a woman or Hispanic, people don't know what to do with you. And so we have to make ourselves known and make ourselves present. And so it's not about sitting around or being against the wall, or, it's about being there specifically for a purpose and making yourself known to everyone that they have to deal with you. One of the ways that I did that as I came onto the council is ask a lot of questions. And that would be my advice to all of you, all of the young people, is to ask a lot of questions, because then you know what you need to know. You have a way to get where you need to go. And people say, oh, wait a second, what is she trying to do? And so it's so important. So if you are the first in your group, obviously you need to set a good example. I try to set a very good example, try to be involved in all of my communities, not just the Hispanic community, but all of my communities. Set a great example and really be there for the community as well. You're not always the voice, but to lift the voices. That's also part of our role as the first, is to lift the voices of those who are not always heard. And that's kind of the reason why we're first, is because we hadn't had this opportunity before. So it's a great honor, and I'm looking forward to continuing the work that I'm doing, but also making sure that I certainly am not going to be the last.
Yeah, and that's a good way to start a legacy as well, because you're not only thinking about yourself in this position, but you're also thinking about the future and how you want to help other Hispanic descendants be a part of this legacy as well. All right, Miss Nike. Oh, I'm sorry. Miss Nike, yes, Miss Nike. Nike, why is it important to you to create an organization and platform focusing on one group of people, Black girls/women, and how have you dealt with those who challenge you and say, why just Black girls and women?
How do I deal with those who challenge me? I'm so sorry. I am challenged every single day, and dealing with Black women all the time. Everyone in my organization is a Black woman, right? And so that's one, I'm inspired by them. But then also I'm passionate about Black women and being a Black woman. I'm so passionate about the work that we're doing. And we hear sometimes that Black women can't get along and things like that, but we show up every single day and we're breaking barriers. We're doing great things. And I decided to focus on Black women. It's because, again, not only am I passionate about it, but I see Black women are changing the world every single day. When people say Black women are the future, I'm like, no, we are now. Our time is now. Our moment is now. The things that we're doing are absolutely happening now. And so for me, seeing young Black women, whether it's young Black girls on college campuses at Morgan State University, Howard University, Bowie, North Carolina A&T, seeing them inspired and doing the work of Black girls vote inspires me every single day. So when I see them, I also see myself in them and wondering, wow, I told the girls at North Carolina A&T that, I got waitlisted for North Carolina A&T. So to have a chapter at North Carolina A&T is so near and dear to me because I ended up going to Frostburg State University. I didn't go to HBCU. I got a scholarship and then North Carolina A&T waitlisted me. But now to look on the campus and have over 50 girls who are part of a Black Girls Vote chapter, that means a lot to me. So it's important to me because I'm passionate about it and I see the future in Black women, and I also see myself. And I know that, give anyone a task, Black girl magic is real. We will accomplish it. And we do it with so much grace and elegance. So that's all I have.
And to have the first African-American vice president is also a leap in the right direction, because that just goes to show that it is very possible and anybody can do it. Next is Gemma. Gemma, as a young person who trains others on trauma, how are you able to stand in your power with confidence in spaces where people may just see you as an inexperienced kid?
That's a good question. I definitely think that when I'm presenting to people about trauma and like healing and just the work that I do in general, like it's kind of just already like this bias that's already kind of set because I'm not over 18. They don't know my background, where I got my information from. And then when I kind of run down my rep sheet and tell them all that I learned, all that I've been practicing, all the events that I've been to, all the people that I connected with, they kind of just like stuck. And they like, okay, I kind of have no other choice but to listen to this young person, considering all that she's done to build herself to get in this position to be able to teach others. So I definitely think that when I present to people, I have to be vulnerable. So I have to be able to share my stories that have actually happened, kind of like just open up that space that people can feel comfortable, because I feel comfortable enough to share with them. So I think that's one of the big things about teaching people about trauma and healing is I have to share a little bit of my trauma and my healing process with them so that they can understand like how it is realistically within youth and people that grow up here in Baltimore. So that's definitely one of the big things that I had to get accustomed to, which was being vulnerable with strangers who I don't even know and who don't know me, and just kind of being able to open up and stand my ground. But definitely being a youth, a lot of people still do see me as a kid and see themselves as an adult. So they feel like I shouldn't be in the position where I'm teaching them something. But when you stop learning, that's not a good thing. You should always be learning no matter what age you are. It's always something new to learn from different people of different age groups, of different races. So I definitely think that learning is a big part, but I have been like in spaces where people have told me like, I don't have nothing valuable to say because I'm a kid. But you kind of have to step out of that position and, remain professional. And it's just like all these things that I've learned while being a youth leader and advocate just kind of come into play. So maintaining my professionalism, my discipline, my composure, my emotional maturity, and making sure that I don't prove them right and that I give them every reason to not doubt me. So just making sure that I present myself well and make sure that they remember me. So just kind of just making my mark on people makes them like step out of that. Okay, she's a kid, but she knows a lot and she has a lot of knowledge. So they acknowledge, my position and what I do, and they respect it. So I think that's just a big thing with me. But standing in my power with confidence is sometimes hard, and sometimes you got to fake it till you make it. But it'll eventually get there, and the confidence comes and it goes, and you'll be nervous sometimes. I'm always nervous, but it's just kind of like I get into the habit of things. So once I start, it's kind of just hard for me to stop. But that's definitely a thing that I had to build up over time. I was very shy at first. I didn't really want to talk to anybody, especially I was doing all this in the midst of the pandemic. So I'm like, all right, all these Zoom calls, all these tech difficulties. I'm like, do I really want to do this? Talking to hundreds of people on Zoom. I trained over like 300 staff at the Enoch Pratt Library last month on trauma-informed care. So it's just like, it can be a lot. And a lot of people always ask me, like, how are you doing so much at 17? And I'm like, I don't even know how I'm doing so much at 17. It's just something that's kind of just in me, and I'm able to do it because of the discipline and the things that are around me, such as like my support systems. So this has definitely been a journey, but if you really want to do something, you'll definitely get there.
And that's really powerful because some people think that it's only about age, but sometimes it's about education and it's about maturity. And I feel like nobody should turn down education and learning new things. It should not depend on who is coming from and what age they are. But this is for every panelist. What's one final word of advice for young people that exercise power from where they are today? Starting off with Councilwoman Rahman.
I'll go back to what I had said earlier. One of the things that I think is extremely important is to continue to ask questions. There is no such thing as a dumb question. When somebody says no, you got to say why. If you've got to get the information that you need to be able to synthesize it and get to where you want to go. So asking questions is extremely important. It also helps you with your voice to understand, so that you're speaking and people are listening. It's someone once said, powerful people ask powerful questions. And so it's I always give that advice because it's extremely important. The other piece, and this is something I get from Senator McRae, is get your writing skills. Make sure that you can craft an argument in writing, because that will help you and that will help others understand where you're coming from. So it's those are the two things, and I think that it's about not only exercising your power but also making yourself present, and that's why making sure that you're asking those questions is really important. There is no such thing as a dumb question. You need to ask those questions.
Ms. Nike.
First, I want to say, Gemma, I'm so proud of you. Just to hear your story at only 17 years old, you do not seem shy in any facet, but that's growth. And that's why I continue to love on Black girls and invest on Black girls. Nothing against Black boys, but just seeing, just doing it, right? And so I just want to commend you. And oftentimes, you all, it's so important to uplift one another because you never know what people are battling through, or just nervousness or fear, or just, but that's so amazing. I'm gonna have to recruit you to Black Girls Vote. But one final word, I'm gonna give 2 words, and that's do it. Do it in fear, do it in uncertainty, do it in, anxiety, anxiousness. And as I share with you all, me launching Black Girls Vote, someone told me, oh my gosh, you got to do it. You got to have a press conference, you got to do all those things. And I didn't have any of those things in order that you think that you need in order. And had I not done it, I would have let fear get in the way. Sometimes we let greatness get in the way of good. You want everything to be perfect, you want everything to be great. However, sometimes being good is okay, right? And just trusting in yourself. So just doing it. And then you'll see that once you take one step, I'm not sure, some of you have faith and some of you may not, whatever that may be, angels or God will guide you along the way. So just do it. Whether you want to start a business, you want to take a class, you want to apply to a college, you want to, do whatever that may be, just do it. And I promise you, resources will come along the way. So do it in fear, do it in uncertainty, and whatever you do, just be great at it. And I promise you, it works out.
All right, and Gemma?
I would say to be successful and for young people to exercise your power where you are today, you have to understand that failure comes with it. So that was one of the greatest things I probably could have learned, that becoming successful in whatever way I seen or powerful, it had to come along with failure, like they best friends. You can't get one without the other. So don't be afraid to fail, or don't get discouraged when you fail at something or something doesn't always go right, because you have to make those mistakes and learn from them to be successful. Like if I didn't try my first painting and I didn't get it wrong, or I didn't like it, if I didn't keep going after that, then I wouldn't be where I am now. Or if the first time I stumbled over a word when I was doing a presentation, if I didn't keep going doing that presentation, I wouldn't be where I am now. So failure comes along with success. So don't, because you fail one time, just stop doing what you think that you could do at first. You know, you have to keep going and trying, do new things, always be open to learning, and just know that along with success comes failure.
And a legend that has passed on, sadly, Aaliyah, she said, if at first you don't succeed, dust yourself off and try again. So, like Gemma said, if you fail once, if you fail twice, if you fail 3 times, dust yourself off and try again. All right, here's some questions for the audience. What is your biggest takeaway from today? You can raise your hand if you want to answer.
Actually, I think before we go there, that will be our closing question, but now is a time if other folks want to ask questions to Councilwoman Ramos, Nike, Gemma, anyone in particular, or the whole group. We know they've just been dropping words of wisdom and just incredible stories from their own lived experiences. So if you have questions for all of them or any of them in particular, please feel free to either drop them in the chat, or you can also submit them on Mentimeter. And I will put up the Mentimeter here. So it's menti.com with the code at the top of the screen. You can submit your questions there or in the chat, and then we'll be asking our incredible panelists some of these questions. Let's do this one quick question while some of the questions are still coming in from our students. So this can be for all the panelists. What schools or school did you attend in Baltimore?
So I moved here in 1991 to go to Goucher College. So I will say that my husband was born and raised here, and he is a Loyola man. And but the Goucher was a phenomenal experience. If you're thinking about Goucher for your college career, please reach out to me and I'll be happy to talk with you about it. It's an amazing place. My daughter is in public school now and in an elementary school in the city. So I'm very, very happy to be involved in public schools.
All right, so I went to an elementary school called Grove Park Elementary. That's no longer there. Then I went to Falstaff Middle School, and then, like many families, we moved to Baltimore County when I was in middle school. So I ended up graduating from Randallstown High School, and then I went to Frostburg State University for college. And now, that's it. That's my Baltimore school story. But I'm in all the schools because we're doing voter registration in a lot of the high schools in Baltimore. So if you haven't seen Black Girls Vote, I'm sure we'll be getting to you all soon.
Mine isn't that long. I went to Rognell Heights for a little bit of my elementary school, and then I transferred to North Bend Elementary Middle School. And then when I graduated from there in 8th grade, I've been at Poly all 3 years. So
Thank you all for sharing. Another question coming in what's your favorite song about power? And let's actually amend that. What's your favorite song or movie about power?
So I think oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, probably my favorite song about power is "Freedom Time" by Lauryn Hill, and she's just like overall in general probably my favorite artist. And I feel like all of her songs speak about power or just healing in general. So definitely want it. And as far as a movie, I would say probably Coach Carter, just because I just watched it on Netflix and I watch it like all the time. And it's one of my favorite movies, but it's a really good movie, and I think it tells a lot about power.
Yeah, I'm gonna say my favorite song. I am a Beyonce. I'm not a part of the Beehive, but every time she performs, I find my way at all the concerts. I love the song "Girls Who Runs the World." Girls would always say, "Who runs the world?" Black girls. You know, always add black girls to it. So that's one of my favorites. And then my favorite movie. I don't know if I have a favorite, but one of my top movies, I would definitely say Malcolm X, because it really talks about his journey. And as you can see, as someone who, battled with, had a troubled past, but then when he began to organize, when he started to read, when he started to think and get people together, you saw the power of just, Black people coming together and organization and organizing. So those would be my top song and movie.
So I'm much more of a musical person, and in terms of plays and Broadway and all of that, and not necessarily listening to the radio. I'm a huge Hamilton fan, and one of the big songs there is "Work," where all three of the characters are talking about, having a new day, and we're about to have a revolution. But wait a second, the women were left out. But we're not going to have that anymore. And so if you haven't been able to see Hamilton, you don't have to see it in the theaters. You can go on Disney Plus and watch it. And it's really pretty amazing history of our nation, but also those who were missing. And Lin-Manuel, who is also Puerto Rican, just like I am, who is the writer, is, tries to bring out, that part of the story. I would say I'm not a big movie watcher either. I just don't have a lot of time, but one of the movies that I've seen more recently is Hidden Figures. And that's an amazing, the fact that the Hidden Figure story, and the women who were so influential to get us, into space and on the moon and around, and I didn't learn that in school. And that's totally shameful. So being able to tell these stories is really important. And so I'm glad that movie was made, but it also influenced me to try to do a lot more research on what other stories haven't been told that we didn't know in school. And that we and me with my platform have a responsibility to make sure that we're hearing those stories in lots of different ways. So it's, I take all of this very seriously whenever I'm looking at various pieces of our art.
Absolutely. Thank you all for sharing. And that idea of sharing stories of people who changed our nation and changed our world, Councilwoman Ramos, but perhaps might not have been talked about in our history textbooks. That's one that's really near and dear to my heart. So I'm thankful for you all being here, sharing your stories. And we're also thinking about ways that we can change narratives in curriculum. There is a question in the chat that any of you three can answer from a student that says, who was your motivator to get where you are now?
I'll go. I'll start with, there are two people. Definitely my grandfather. You know how you have someone who was always your protector. So my grandfather, who's now deceased, he would always be there. He was my person that I could go to, and he would always tell me, it's nice to be important, but most important, to be nice, right? So no matter where you go in life, right, all the great things you may accomplish, remember to stay grounded in your niceness. And then I would definitely say my mom is my second, because, you know, just seeing her overcome so much, but then also the sacrifices she made for me and my siblings really, really meant a lot. And so every day I work to, you know, to pay it forward and to pay her back. And not necessarily you can never pay your mom back, but just to do things for her, to let her know that I appreciate her.
I have a lot of people who helped me get here. It's so hard to just pick a few because, you know, you have an idea of what you want to do, and then you have to get the right network around you. I will tell you, when I was running for office, I have she's about to be 10-year-old daughter. And you know, I had to go door knocking, I had to go campaign, and, you know, she didn't want to always hang out with dad. So we formed the mom squad. All my mom friends took her each weekend so that she could play with their you know, their kids, but she also had a place and she was loved. And you know, you can't make it without the mom squad. You just can't make it without that network and that support system, as Gemma has been talking about. And so there's so many people who have really, you know, made it work in terms of motivating. You know, one of my people who I look up to is our first woman senator, who was elected in her own right, Barbara Mikulski, right here from Baltimore. And so, you know, she was also a first. And she continues to, even in her retirement, motivate people to do the right thing. And just her history and what she's done in Baltimore really showed that, you know, all of us can continue to do this. And lastly, my great grandmother ran for governor of Puerto Rico, and so at some point the bloodline is there. But obviously that was, you know, right around the time where women were in the US, women were given the right to vote. That did not include women in Puerto Rico, because even though Puerto Rico is part of the US, it's a territory. In some places, in some of us call it a colony, and not part of that. So my great grandmother was instrumental in making sure that women in Puerto Rico had the right to vote, and then ran for office. So it's those kinds of mentors that you see ahead of you, on whose shoulders that we stand, that, you know, continue to motivate me, at least to continue. And then, of course, also seeing the work of Gemma and all the young people doing such great, amazing work all over the city. It's really motivating and inspiring.
For me, my list is long, so I'm not gonna sit here and try to run down the whole list of y'all, but definitely I would say Heart Smiles is a nonprofit in general, especially Miss Joni. She's the founder of Heart Smiles. She's definitely been a big motivator and been a big support system for me. Dr. Kyla, we call her Dr. K, but she works at the University of Maryland School of Social Work. She's definitely been a big support and motivator for me. And Cam, y'all see as Camry Moses in the chat, but we call her Cam. She's been in the chat all morning. She's definitely one of the first youth leaders and advocates that I've seen in Baltimore City that I didn't know personally, but I was seeing a lot of her presentations first and a lot of her youth leader and advocacy work. And she's definitely been a big motivator and support for me, like individually. She texted me this morning. She was like, have a good panel and all of that stuff. So she definitely is a great support system. And specifically for me, starting my entrepreneurship journey, she was my entrepreneurship teacher when I went through the entrepreneurship program for Heart Smiles. So she's definitely been a big motivator, and the reason why I have like my LLC right now, in the midst of starting a nonprofit for visual artists. She's definitely been a big motivator for that.
That's awesome. I love the idea of, I think someone said legacy earlier, Gemma, and you're talking about how Cam passed it on to you, and now you're passing it on through your business and your work to other young people in Baltimore, which is incredible. So thank you all for those answers. We have just a couple more minutes left. So our closeout question for our panelists, I'm actually going to combine one that I saw in the Mentimeter with one that I saw in the chat. In the chat, someone said, can you share one of your strategies for overcoming your fear? And someone in the Mentimeter said, what helps you when you're nervous or mad? So I'd love to hear from you all when you have fear or nerves. How do you respond to those emotions?
For me, I'm nervous like all the time, like for like little small stuff, like the littlest of things I'll be nervous about. And I think it's just like, there's a human reaction. So sometimes I just kind of ignore it. Sometimes I like count down from 10. Sometimes I just like breathe. It definitely does depend on the situation and like what I can do in that place. So I know a lot of times, especially on Zoom, if I'm nervous, I'll put my hands in my lap and like fiddle with my fingers or something in my hand that you all can't see that I'm doing to like kind of like handle my nerves. Or if like I'm really nervous and I feel like my mouth is getting dry even when I'm not talking because I'm just sitting here like just nervous, I'll drink something on camera or something like that. But definitely like doing like little small things that people can't see like helps me take away the nerves. Or like I'll make a joke that's funny to me but may not be funny to y'all. So sometimes I had to like make myself laugh or make the audience laugh to kind of like lighten the mood. So that's definitely one of the things that I do when I'm nervous, and I'm usually like always nervous. When I'm fearful, I'm not necessarily sure if I'm more nervous than fearful anytime, but sometimes I get afraid that like people won't retain the information that I had to explain, or they won't understand what I'm saying, and like I won't find a way to explain it to them where they can understand it. So I do wreck my brain sometimes with that, but I always ask for help. I think that's kind of like the root of everything. I always ask for help if I do feel uncomfortable with explaining something or I need to refresh. So I'll either ask for help from Cam or Miss Joni or somebody else in my support system and just ask them like, what do you think I should do? Or what can I do if they've been in a similar situation? So definitely always asking for help is something that I had to learn as a big part of getting rid of like nerves and fear.
I'll go next. When I'm nervous, I oftentimes I do affirmations. You know, as I started off, you know, the session today, like I am. That helps me a lot. Just affirmations. Definitely positive thinking, because sometimes I'll get in a place where, you know, sometimes in a rut, and then I, you know, just have to shift my thinking, right? And sometimes I have a friend I will call. I'm like, all right, you can vent for only 5 minutes or something like that. But after that, let's come up with the solutions. So a village is so important, as Gemma said. And then also, I'm in therapy, right? So mental health is important. So I see my therapist on a regular basis. And if I'm mad, I don't get mad too often. But when I do get upset or bothered by something, I try to work my emotion. I am a little stubborn. So I'm, you know, working on that and becoming a better person. But those are the things that really, really work for me. So whether it's my affirmations, whether it's shifting my positive thinking, I really apologize. And then going to therapy, that really helps me.
There have been a couple of times in the year and a few months that I've been in office where I would get really mad because something happened to a constituent, or I was blocked from doing something. And when I get angry about those kinds of things, I just work hard to get around it and to fix it and to do something about it. Rather than say, well, okay, see ya, you know, no, it's about just trying to keep going. And, you know, being nervous is part of, you know, if you're nervous, you care a lot about what you're trying to do. And so I think nerves are a good thing. I do get nervous every time I'm about to speak and try to, you know, do some really big work that we're doing. But I also know that helps to prepare to do what needs to be done, because you care so much about being able to get what you're trying to do to get it right. So being nervous is fine, being mad is fine, but quitting is not fine. And so, you know, working around it, figuring out another way, organizing a different way, and is important. Also, if I can just add to that, there are there are times where I get personally attacked, right? I mean, and I'm in public office, that just is what happens. And one of the things that we build up as we move forward in this work, particularly as women, and not just elected officials, but others, other positions, is that you just have to have some thick skin, and you just move forward and you move on. I can't answer those guys. I'm not going to answer those guys. I'm going to keep doing and get my head down and do the work. And it's hard. It's so hard not to, respond, but you can't give airtime to the haters. You just can't. You just keep going. And it is the hardest thing I think I've ever done, is to be quiet when somebody's attacking, but then they go away because you're not engaging. Right? It's hard. I know, but it's something that, you just have to keep your head down, be confident in what you're doing and how you know that you're doing it, and just keep doing the work.